Hi everybody, Mike McConville here one more time, Stratford, Ontario, Canada for StringTechWorkstations. This is an interesting day because we've got the old and the new. So we have Arthur Hensel guitar. This is from the 20s. It needs to have a neck reset. We're going to do a complete refret. We're going to make a new bridge. That bridge is coming off. It's actually in pretty remarkable condition for 1920. So we'll kind of document that as we always do, sort of step by step. The guitar that just came in yesterday, Paul dropped this off. Of course, it's the polar opposite of the Hensel guitar. This is brand new. I mean, the stickers are still on the pickups. Okay. First of all, I have not touched this guitar. It's like right out of the case. So I'm going to sort of check the neck. I'm going to do all this reconnaissance with everyone, kind of walk you through step by step. I'm going to adjust the neck as it needs or does not need. I'll explain as I always do. We're just about to start this whole process of setting this up. One of the sort of number one tips I want to give, and I'm always after my level 1 students, even the first class, before you adjust a truss rod, when you go to check a truss rod on any guitar, you always loosen it slightly first before tightening it. You don't want to be in a position where you haven't checked the truss rod and the customer leaves your shop and then the next day you phone them and say, did you know the truss rod was broken? Okay, that's a responsibility you do not want to take. So always check the truss rod first. In this case, I'm just about to loosen the truss rod on this Flying V, brand new. Just because it's brand new doesn't mean that the truss rod's doing what it should do. In most cases it does, but check it just the same every time. A little bit of a surprise here. This actually is a two-way truss rod. So when I went to back it off, it was actually already quite tight. Let me explain something about two-way truss rods. I know in the classes a lot of students get confused over this. So when you tighten a two-way truss rod, you'll find sort of a neutral zone. There's a small space in the threads where you'll feel that the adjustment nut is loose. If you continue to turn clockwise like this, then what that does is it exerts pressure on the neck that counteracts the pull of the string. So it'll pull the neck back like this. Strings want to pull the neck up like a banana. When you tighten that, it pulls it back. With a two-way truss rod, once you go through that sort of neutral zone, you keep turning counterclockwise, it actually exerts the same type of tension that the strings exert. Now, when I went to check this, it had been turned counterclockwise to the point where it had quite a bit of tension on it. So I loosened it off, I adjusted the lay of the neck so it's as straight as possible, and now I'm going to check it with some straight edges and see if there's any high spots. So this is a 2 thou feeler gauge, and I cannot get it under there. This neck is very good. On that side, now I'm checking it on this side. A little bit of space there and here. But that's okay, I can live with that. If this drops off at the body, it's not going to cause the guitar to buzz. I'll just turn this over. Try that again. Yeah, no, this is very good tolerance on this neck. So the only place where I found a little bit of a space was right up here, right there, there. And you know something? That is so minute that I am not going to take a leveling file to this. It's not going to need it. Now that the truss rod is adjusted and I backed it off, the lay of the neck on this one is exceptional, actually. So we are going to be putting a compensated nut on this. It's going to be set up for a 11 to 56 string and tuned to E flat. Everything will be set up for that gauge of string and that pitch. Now we've got the tongue depressors here so that the strings don't mar the edge of that mint brand new black face. This is a brand new guitar. You don't want to put a breath mark on it. I've got the strings pulled out of the way. I slipped that tongue depressor in between the sliding V blocks on the TechDeck and just kind of hold those strings out of the way. I'm going to use these strings to kind of get the overall setup. Once we hone in sort of all the final adjustments, I'll put the actual set of strings that Paul is using, and then we'll do the final adjustments on the truss rod, tweak on the intonation, and then of course the values for the compensated nut. Although this is nowhere near as complicated as removing a Gibson nut as an Epiphone, we still need to score along that edge. This is a brand new guitar. We don't want to leave any footprint at all of our work. So really, all you really need to do is you need to score across that face, and then we're going to heat that up with the hairdryer and gently get that off. We've heated that up, so I'll go ahead and heat that blade up and then just score that leading edge. Score along that leading edge before we go to knock this out. I've actually got the headstock again in the center of my chest. And that should do it. Came out pretty clean. You can see they put that on with super glue right here. When the compensated nut blank goes in, it'll just be regular wood glue. With a little bit of heat, we got that off nice and clean without any damage. So we've scraped off that film of super glue off the end of the fingerboard here so it doesn't disrupt the fit of our compensated nut. Liking the fit on that nut blank, just a little bit of tweaking to go. Yeah, looks good. I am leaving the crown a little bit thicker. Those strings kind of splay out and want to sort of break off the outside tip of the nut. Now I am still using the original nut. We'll start with that, tracing that across the crown. Anyone who's following this channel has certainly seen me do this a few times. And then we'll put it on the guitar and get a better read with the strings under tension. Okay, we'll slip those tongue depressors out now. Actually put the strings into their sort of designated slots. When you look at the the plastic injection molded nut, they actually have the string in quite far from that outside edge, because with plastic it's so weak. If you bring the string spacing where it should be, like here, that would just bust right off. But we've changed to Corian here, much stronger. There's a reason that Martin and Gibson have switched over to Corian. I noticed immediately when I set the guitar on the TechDeck that the original nut, those strings were removed an unnatural distance away from that outside edge to avoid the chipping. Now when you look at this distance here and you look at this distance here, this is much closer to a natural string spacing. A little bit wider, it's going to feel a whole lot better. This will be much closer to your standard ES335 Les Paul SG. What I have here in my hand is an ES335 nut that was replaced, I don't know when, probably years ago. It's just in my junk box. But I just wanted to show you that the actual spacing now is like it should be. The plastic injection molded nut spacing was way too close. It was not natural to have the strings that close together. The only reason they did it was from a manufacturing or engineering standpoint. They didn't want the outside edge of the plastic to bust off. Because this is how I strap down the V. A little bit different strapping configuration, but the body and the neck is supported. Yeah, so it's held safely. Both neck and body are supported. Between the rails, the void allows you to just kind of tuck that into the leather pads, and it's not going anywhere. I'm not worried about the guitar wobbling or slipping or shifting as I'm working on it. It's held firmly, safely, for me to do whatever job needs to be done. Anyway, this one is 100% done. Wait till you hear this. You know, guitar intonation is kind of many a splendored thing, as most guitar techs know. It is still a compromise, but a very close compromise. Now, when I check the overall intonation on a guitar, and I've shown you this before, where I use a series of this, a sixth and a tenth. So I don't want to get too carried away with the theory, but a sixth, if you invert it, is a third. A third, if you invert it, is a sixth. The foundation and the building blocks of Western music are what's called Tertian harmony. So Tertian harmony dictates that to build a chord or a vertical harmonic structure, you put a third on a third on a third on a third, hence the tertian. Anyone that knows anything about chord theory knows you have the root, third, fifth, seventh, ninth, 11th, and 13th. Now, by using this combination of sixths and thirds, it helps me to really regulate the guitar. I mean, obviously there's a compensated nut, the intonation, the action, lay of the neck, all of that stuff is done over and above. But so I guess the point I'm making is that the guitar can be tuned accurate enough you could play with the keyboard player. So it's always the thirds that give you the biggest challenge, right? Of course, you play thirds anywhere along any adjacent set of strings. Sixth as well. This guitar of Paul's, this is a new customer. First guitar I've done for him. Now, with the wider string spacing, he also has a flamenco guitar, so he'll be very confident. You can play flamenco. The guitar is super comfortable to play, and the fact that the neck is automatically elevated like that is great. So the wide spacing, fairly chunky neck, fairly thick, fairly wide, definitely bigger than your average Strat or Les Paul neck, but super comfortable to play. So, of course, the other type of harmony that was spearheaded by a lot of the jazz guys in the 70s. Herbie Hancock, of note, but was quartal harmony. So, of course, the guitar is tuned in fourths, quartal meaning fourths. Because the guitar is tuned in fourths, these are some of the easiest chords to play. So once I finish my setup, I check it between the quartal harmony and the tertian harmony, which is the thirds. Again, what I'm doing here is tenths, so if you take a third and you move it up an octave, displace it an octave, a third becomes a tenth at 7 to 3. And then I'll add that sixth in between. I'm trying to sort of compartmentalize for my level 2 students and all the YouTube subscribers that have been kind of following my channel diligently, and I thank you for that. I'm trying to sort of encapsulate some of the most significant elements of my approach to intonating the guitar and getting it to be as accurate as possible. I have an interesting story to share. I've been here in Stratford for 30 years. And over that time, I've done a lot of work for the Stratford Shakespearean Festival. The props department will get hold of me and they'll bring me a guitar that they want me to distress or, make it look old, that type of thing. I did have a guitar a few years back, steel string acoustic guitar, and it was used in, I think it was As You Like It, one of the Shakespearean plays. And I'd done my thing and distressed the guitar, spilled some oil on it, scraped it up with some steel wool, recut the headstock to a sort of Louis Panormo style headstock because it was used on stage in this particular play. They had put the latest, at that time, about 15 years ago, the latest radio controlled system. And the prop department had kind of woven the antenna into the leather strap to kind of hide it. So this is, you got to picture this. So this is a sort of a beaten up guitar sitting in a haystack on stage, and the idea is the actor picks it up and plays it, and it's coming through the house speakers. It's like phenomenal sound. But there was a bit of a buzz, like kind of a hum. So Bruno, the head electrician, had called me here in the shop. Mike, can you come down to the big house? We're just doing dress rehearsal. I want you to hear this sort of hum and, give me some advice as to what we might do to get rid of it. So no problem, they're just a couple of blocks away, right? Cycle down on my bicycle and meet Bruno at the big house. And so we're standing in front of the main stage, and Burke Carriere was there standing with the two of us in front of the stage. Bert was the conductor of the symphony orchestra at the time. So this is a guy that's got like radar hearing, right? He can hear the third violin, their second string is 3 cents flat. I mean, this guy can hear anything, right? So I'm a little bit nervous, right? Because I'm, kind of waiting to hear the response from Bert. And Bruno turns to Bert and says, so is that hum, is that going to be a problem, right? And so Bert looks at the actor and says, well, pick up the guitar, strum a couple of chords. So the actor picks up the guitar and he kind of strums through, A minor 9, a few different chords and stuff. And Bert turns to Bruno and says, the damn thing's in tune. Poor Bert, I think it was the first time in his life he heard a guitar in tune. He didn't give a damn about the buzz. The thing was in tune. He was stunned. Anyway, so the point I'm trying to make is, although the guitar is more popular than all musical instruments combined, it's very seldom regulated properly. There's so many variations on the theme, from the strings you choose to the tuning you choose. Like this guitar is perfectly intonated for E flat. So it's really about relative pitch. Even in E flat, no problem. I mean, you can strum what would normally be a G, but it's G flat, D, C, C flat, A flat minor. It's perfectly in tune. It's always a bit of a moving target. Even a lot of you subscribers have kind of emailed and said, how would that compensate? What are the values of the compensated nut? And again, it's a moving target, depending on the scale length, the gauge of string, the tuning itself. What I do want to share with you is that because Western music is built on what's called Tertian harmony, or the idea of stacking a third on a third on a third to build chords, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, I use that as my sort of jump off point. I start by playing a sixth, a combination of a sixth, and then I add a 10th on top. This is to regulate the guitar along its length. I'll adjust the bridge and the compensated nut and the lay of the neck accordingly. A 10th interval is a third moved up an octave, so you add 7 to 3 and you get a 10th. 10ths sound like this. I'm sure you've heard the sound before. Now if I add the 6th on the second string, the interval of a 6th, it's in this case I'm playing the 4th, the 2nd, and the 1st string. Then I'll move that same group of harmonic mechanisms over to the middle set of strings. So 5th string, 3rd string, and 2nd. Middle group of strings, same thing, a 6th. And then on the bass set of strings, once again I'll start down here. We've got our 6th and a 10th. I hope that helps to clarify my own approach to regulating a guitar across the entire span of the neck. Usually at the end I will leap across the strings using that set of intervals. Right? Or I can leap across all 3 sets. 2. Anyway, it's kind of a fun musical exercise, actually. Just kind of playing around with those mechanisms. after studying in university and college and going through a bunch of Bach lute suites, this idea of using this wide interval of a tenth. So yeah, you can have a lot of fun just moving those intervals around. Boy, this really feels like an acoustic guitar. It feels like a Martin neck. Nice to have those big frets and big strings. So Paul, you can practice all your flamenco licks on this thing. So there you go. So this is set up for E flat, and the relative pitch is perfect. We'll see you next time. We've got this early 20s Hensel guitar. We'll be doing a neck reset, complete refret, radius fingerboard, and building a new bridge. Thanks for tuning in. Take care. Talk soon.